Hey guys, making this video for our Town Hall 10 Academy at the Family Circle Discord server, and we're gonna have a Mercs Academy there, and this is going to work in collaboration. This video is going to work in collaboration with, or in conjunction with, two other videos. One from Halo, who does a Bowitch video. It's a little bit pre-summer update, but that one is more base identification, and those tips still apply. Very good tips there. And also Cast and Blast has another a more current video for the Bowitch, and he goes over some pretty good technical tips on troop deployment as well as spell deployment, which is very important. Me personally, I have my own version of how I use the Bowitch. I find it to be very efficient, very effective, and just FYI, I did pick up the composition from BD Clashers. They're a very well-known YouTube channel that offers very good quality videos. I am going to, or had a bunch of replays that I was doing earlier, and I intended to record them, but work got in the way, and those attacks all scrolled out of the way, and I am pressed for time, so we're only going to do a few videos to hopefully explain or show my version of how I approach the Bowitch. Now, there are different types of combinations that you could do. You could do an AQ walk, you could do a BK flank on the side, which I like to do in cases where there's a lot of splash, maybe a lot of heavy defenses. That'll take out your witches and bowlers very quickly. And also there's the stoned version, or sometimes cold-blooded as well. There's different. You can use golems, and I've seen with one golem, 2 or 3 golems, they can be successful. My opinion, I've been looking for something that's been, I guess, a little bit more universal, that can function on different bases, and even when things go wrong, you still have a chance for that 3-star, mostly because the combination I've been using uses 11 witches, sometimes 12 on the bigger town halls, but at Town Hall 10 I go with 11 witches. Sometimes I might drop it down to 10 if I'm going to take maybe a couple balloons to take out a defensive structure that's kind of not defended. Also, well, I'm going to get into this. I did send an attack here with my Bowitch army. This one here has 12 witches, as you can see here at the top. 12 witches, 10 bowlers, 6 giants. And I use wall breakers for either the flanks, usually on the flanks, which are the sides, and sometimes on the back end, just to kind of help troops go through the walls. I don't use any jumps, by the way. I did use them before the update, but since we have the wall wrecker, no need. At Town Hall 10, the base is not big enough. There could be an exception if there's a lot of walls, or if you have maybe a center town hall and you want to jump for that back end, then yes, I will take a jump. But in most cases, I'm going to go 2 heal, 3 rage, and a freeze to freeze the single set Inferno Tower, so that it doesn't take out my wall wrecker too early. In my CC, it just depends on the base. If I think I could do very well with max bowlers in the middle of the base under rage, then I'll take that. If I think if the core might be open and wide, where I'm going to get a lot of value, maybe Town Hall, Queen, and Inferno Towers, Teslas, those are common buildings that you see in the core. If I see that and it's open, I'm going to take Valks and a wall breaker and a barb. The wall breaker is just to help break walls to keep the Valks moving. Of course, I'm going to rage them as well. Let's watch the replay. This is not a meta base, but I want to point out it does have a lot of walls that I have to go through, so it's not as easy it looks for this particular army. If you go with other armies, hogs or loons, you'll just smash this easy. But for this particular army, because there's a lot of walls and no jump spells, then it's going to be a little bit slower for the troops to go through it. But also want to point out, a lot of times, most of the time, people like to go from corner to corner, meaning either 3 to 6 or 6 to 9 or 9 to 12 or 12 to 3, and they'll go in and cover that whole side. But in my opinion, since the introduction of the wall wrecker, we can go in through the corners, and we could do it much easier than we used to before. In this particular case, I did not enter from a corner. I did offset it though a little bit because I wanted to capture as many compartments as possible. And of course, as most of you guys know, we do like to try to take out the infernos, and hopefully one at a time. So I kind of came in a little bit from 3, but more like 4, 3:30ish kind of. Anyway, and when I'm looking at a base before I drop any troops, I look to see where can I get some bowler bounces. Just, if you're new to this, just FYI, the common defensive structures that you're going to want to bowler bounce are going to be your mortar, especially if you're doing Bowitch, because mortars do splash and they'll take out your skellies very quickly. Also, whiz towers, they have short range, so they're not going to be hitting your bowler, and so you could bowler bounce them. Of course, whiz towers have splash damage as well, and they'll take out your witches and skellies very quickly. So I try to target those with bowler bounces. Try to stay away from something where you're going to be in range of an archer tower or a cannon, because they will kill your bowler and you're not going to get the value. So here I only identified that one whiz tower. Here at 3 o'clock, that whiz tower is a little bit out of range. I didn't want to come in from this side because of that cannon. I'd also like to go after bomb towers if I can get it on a bounce. For example, if this archer tower was not there, I'd be able to bounce this bomb tower from that gold mine there. But such was not the case. There's a bomb tower out here outside the wall, but I don't have any air troops. Maybe a minion would be perfect, or a balloon, and that would have been great value. But I don't want to drop a giant and then a bowler. It's like, I felt comfortable enough that I would have enough troops to take it out on the back end. So here I only identified that wizard tower, and I'm going to go ahead and bowler bounce it, and then I'm going to, let me also mention, when I'm deploying troops, I do a 3-finger drop and I stagger it. So it'll be, I start off with the giants, it'll be 3 giants, shift, 3 giants, and then 3 witches, shift, 3 witches, drop my wall wrecker, then bowlers, 3 and 3. Each time I drop that second 3-finger drop is not going to be on the same spot. I shift it over to give it a little bit of a spread. Now there are some bases where there's not a lot of heavy splash on the side I'm going to enter. In that case, I might want to drop more troops. But usually I try to keep a few to try to gauge how my troops are going to be flowing or funneling. Sometimes if I see troops flowing, too many of them flowing to the side, then I know I'm going to keep my troops, a good portion of them, to send them down the middle once the first layer of walls is broken. If I get those buildings inside that first compartment going down too quickly, then I have to wait for the second layer of walls. But try not to wait too long, because then troops will walk. So it's a matter of timing and judgment. When you're dropping your spells, you're going to want to start off with a rage, heal, rage at the back end. If your troops are not advancing as fast as you'd like, then you may have to drop and overlap those spells. Of course, we want to avoid that, but sometimes you can't, and it is a good idea to go ahead and do that to give the troops that extra help. If you do have too many troops that went around the outside and just a few in the core, spend the spells on your core troops. It's going to be rare when you're going to say, you know what, I don't have enough in the core, I'm going to drop it on the flanks. That's going to be rare, because there's going to be occasions where you just a few troops under spells could take out the core. If you don't take out the core, then you risk not being able to 3-star. So keep that in mind. Let's start this attack. So that wizard tower didn't go down, but I'm okay with it because I'm kind of funneling that outside anyway, and the wizard tower will go down a little bit quicker once my troops get to it. Notice how I'm dropping the troops, kind of staggered, timing them, watching what they're doing before I send all of them. I usually like to start off with a rage early on, give them a good push into the base, and then followed by a heal. Sorry, I had to pause that. If I forgot to mention, if I have a single target inferno targeting my wall wrecker, I'm going to want to freeze that right away. Of course, keeping an eye on that CC so that you can poison it in a timely manner. Here I've lost my wrecker. My troops are stuck behind a wall. I had to do a heal on top of, a rage on top of a heal to help give them that push to break that wall. We all know bowlers are excellent kill troops when they're under rage, but so are skellies. They'll go through walls like butter under rage if you have enough of them. So there's that last rage and the back end to give them that push to break through walls, to take down defenses. I should also mention that having max heroes helps a lot. So for those of you that are thinking of not waiting for your heroes, I strongly recommend wait for your heroes. That bomb tower at the back end is getting a bowler bounce, not enough to take it down, but enough to soften it up so that the rest of the troops can take it down. So things really worked out pretty nicely. Still have a lot of troops left. Of course, the base wasn't the hardest, but it was a max defense. There's a composition. Most of the time, if I'm going to be doing FCs or doing farming, raiding, whatever, I will most likely opt for Valks just because they self-tank. You never know what kind of bases you're going to run into sometimes, and it is pretty universal. Now, since I don't have the attacks that I wanted to use for this video, I'm going to show you some that we had in our last war. I didn't have any Town Hall 10 Bowitch attacks, but we have two Town Hall 12 attacks. One was on a almost fully maxed Town Hall 12, and the other was on a Town Hall 11, but the attacker did not have Town Hall 12 level troops, and I think only 10 extra camp spaces. So it's fairly balanced attack. It's not a full-blown dip attack. Let's watch that one. Now, notice on this one, the witches are coming down first on the corners. The reason for that is to get most of the troops inside the wall. Because of this base design, you don't get as much value on the troops walking on the outside, because I'm pausing this here because there's a few things I want to point out. Where you see this warden here, that would be ideally where you want your troops, that corridor, and also the opposite side over here by the BK altar. Ideally, that's the flank troops where you want them to be. They'll take out structures on both sides of that corridor. And then your core troops inside here where the eagle is, eventually the town hall. Now, we do want a few troops going on the complete outside walls, but not too many. So we don't want to wait too late. And so here we drop the giants staggered in threes, and then the witches and wall wrecker, and then the bowlers. So we do want to try to get the wall wrecker as fast as possible so that we can get the wall broken so that troops don't walk. This is not a fresh hit. We had another guy hit it, so we knew there was a bomb there. Since we're doing a Town Hall 12 here on a Town Hall 11, I want to point out the timing of the Warden ability. Usually we like to hold that ability until we get closer to the core, closer to the infernal towers. But with a Bowitch, you don't really need it around the infernal towers too much. Your biggest enemy is going to be that ego artillery. So you want to come after it. Try as much as you can to go after the ego artillery. Infernal towers, if they're set to single, they're not going to bother you too much as long as they don't lock onto your heroes. But on Bowitch, sometimes if your troops are facing heavy fire on the entry, you might want to activate the warding ability on the first Eagle Blast. Normally, here you see the blast coming out. As soon as you see it coming out, wait about 3 seconds. I like to say 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then on 3 use Eagle or ability. I'm sorry, the warding ability. You're gonna activate it right before the bombs fall, so that way you can take advantage of the timing so that the ability doesn't wear off. You might be able to catch 2 Eagle Blasts if you time it that way. Now also keep in mind that another advantage to using it early is that you're using it on the majority of your troops because they're packed tighter together. Here we're going to do it on the second one because there is not as much defensive structure or defensive fire on our troops, so we're going to wait for the first one and then use it on the second one. There, you see it? How it was timed, that was perfect. So everything's going down really good. Notice that we left some bowlers at the very end to try to get as many down the core. The witch here at the north, you're going to notice is going to die without having used her ability, so we did take our eye off of that one. But everything else works out really good. E-drag in the CC, those are always a pain in the butt to kill. The Valkyries took out the Town Hall very quickly and easily. And we have a witch trying to save the day in the core. A lot of bowlers on the south part of the base here, so that's where we're going to use most of our spells. I did bring some hogs on this one. You can mix up the army a little bit. You might want to bring hogs on a certain base, on another base you might want to bring loons or maybe a couple of wizards to help supplement the attack, to help it go in the direction that you want it to. If you see a flank that might need some help, you might want to drop them on that side. In this particular attack, that northern flank from 12 to 3 was dying off. We could have dropped the hogs over there, but we knew that there was no way that was going to help very much. That's why we supplemented the bigger portion of the attack. Here, wall breakers did not help very much. Things just didn't go in a way where they would be helpful, just because everything kind of went off to one side and we didn't have a need. Things were going down pretty easily. We didn't have a need to redirect troops in any manner, so they were not as helpful. But that jump spell sure was. There it is, very similar to that Town Hall 10 composition. And now we're going to see the other one. This is going to be versus a almost maxed Town Hall 12. Look at these defenses. Wizard towers, bomb towers, infernals, X-bows. Town Hall is level 1. That'd be the only exception. Well, a couple other defenses as well, but the core is mostly all maxed. And it's going to be a very similar composition. Zuki here goes in from 3 o'clock corner. Remember, I told you with the records it's much easier to enter from a corner. He chose the corner here for different purposes. I'm going to pause this real quick. If you go in through the gaps, you run the risk that your troops are going to be circling around, as well as facing these wizard towers, which your troops will not be able to reach. The witches will, but not your bowlers. The bowlers will walk and leave your witches behind. And oh geez, thanks. They'll leave your kids. They'll leave the witches behind, and the witches will get taken out. So he created his own gap there on the corner, knowing that troops will flow more in his favor. So he's normally with Bowitch, you want to create a wide distribution from side to side, but I'm pausing this. In this particular case, he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want too many troops to walk around. So he's going to try to keep them tight, let them flow, and then as you notice, he dropped more. Please stop texting me. He's going to drop more, or he dropped more, so that they flow into the core. The Eagle Artillery just sent off a blast, and he's going to be using his ability here shortly. Not on that one. I guess he wants to get closer into the core. There's a heal and a jump, and there's the Warden ability. I think he was using it, or trying to use it to defend against that Infernal Tower. He brought that jump because I think he believed that he was not going to be able to save his wall record long enough to reach the Town Hall. So he dropped that jump to get as many troops inside that core. And notice the spells are all going into the core. Let the exterior troops, the flank troops, do their thing. They're going to be fine. They've got plenty of tanking with those skellies. But the bulk of your help's going to have to be in the core. Especially considering that the core is so packed with defenses. So at this point, you kind of have a sense that this is going to be a 3-star. Tons of witches left. Look at that. The reason I love to use a lot of witches is because, remember, witches got buffed. Healers got nerfed. Golems did get a little bit of help at 11 and 12 because they're no longer 2 times damage from the Eagle. Nevertheless, we're seeing so many Infernal Towers set to single that you don't get as much value. So I just believe, you know, if a troop is buffed, try to use more of them. Let's 2 times this. And there you go. Another 3-star using this Bowitch at Town Hall 10, 11, and 12. So hopefully that will help. We'll go over some more attacks in our academy, so hope to see you guys there.